y'all. My name is Sarah, and I love to talk about movies in a kind of semi-critical way. And today we're going to talk about Escape Room. It is about, you guessed it, a group of people that are invited to, do you play an escape room? Escape an escape room for a cash prize. Twist on twist, they get trapped in the escape room, and it turns out that the challenges are real and they could really die or be, maimed. And it's up to them to decode the clues and solve the riddles and move from room to room in order to escape. That's pretty much it. My issue with this is that in a regular scenario where people are trying to solve puzzles and stuff, it could literally be anything in this room. That's my issue with escape rooms, is that it could be from corner to corner in this room. It could be anything. A clue could be the calendar on the wall, the books on the shelf, the lamp, have something to do with the table, the furniture, the chairs. Whatever is in the room could have some relevance to a clue, and I don't like that, so I'm not a fan of these games. Although I haven't done one in a while, I will say. So at the beginning of the movie, you see what looks like a filthy hobo man fall out of the ceiling into a very luxurious room with this huge rug, globes, this elaborate woodwork, library shelving, books everywhere, what looks like expensive pieces of art and bric-a-brac everywhere. And he's just running around the room, babbling to himself, grabbing stuff, looking at it. And all of a sudden the walls start to close in on him, and he's running around. He ends up getting stuck between two walls, and he's just screaming. And that's where the first scene ends. At the beginning of the movie, you're introduced to each character. You sort of follow them through a few scenes of their daily life, each of them receiving the invitation. The perspective will move from person to person, around the same time. For example, not all of them, clearly, because it's a lot of characters, but the three main characters, Zoe, Jason, and Ben. And right there should tell you the direction that this movie is going in, because we only see them three receive the puzzles and solve them, which is why I was very surprised when in the next scenes where they go to the meeting place, there are more people there. I was like, oh, fascinating. It's not gonna work out, but okay. So they go in, it's creepy and weird. They go into the first puzzle, and it looks like a regular waiting room. They find the first clue, the game starts, and there's an oven in the ceiling. The longer it takes them to solve the clue, the hotter the room gets. So they're moving from clue to clue around this room, and they find the way into the next room. As it turns out, one of the invitees, Amanda, has a thing about heat and fire, but all of them manage to escape from that room into the next room, which is freezing cold and is like a cabin in the woods scenario. After they find their way out of the cabin and into the next environment, the cabin door locks and they're stuck out in the cold. And while they look around for clues, all of them are kind of testing the environment, seeing how real things are. They find the next clues, and Danny has managed to sneak a cell phone into the escape room. And at the same time that Ben is about to throw his lighter across the room, there's an explosion and Danny falls into the water in this frozen river and is swept into out of the environment. So they find the next clue. It's a key to a door. Just a regular old key to a regular old door that they have to get out of this block of ice. In each environment, there's something that triggers a memory in one of the characters. Now, in the first one, the being in the oven triggered Amanda's memories. And being in traveling into the next environment, into the log cabin, being in the small space reminded her of a traumatic event from her past. Now, when Ben was in the log cabin, that also happened to him. And when they got out of the cabin, as a twofer, Jason was reminded of a memory as well. So now they know that the game is not a game, it's real. The next environment is a room that is built upside down. Looks like a bar. The timeline with that room is when the music stops playing, a part of the floor falls away to nothing. They manage to find the clues, solve the puzzles, and one of them again gets got. So they move into the next environment, and the next environment is like a medical hospital, and it's there that they learn the common denominator that connects all of them. And the common denominator is that they're all soul survivors of different kinds of accidents or events. And within that room are the medical records from each of them. Zoe appears to have a total complete breakdown and starts babbling about change and starts like knocking out the cameras in that room. Mike and Jason and Ben find the next clues, and they think that they figured it out. And Jason basically shocks Mike to death in an attempt to solve the puzzle. And then he realizes his mistake after Mike is dead. Jason and Ben get into the next room. They leave Zoe there. Once that they've started to solve the puzzle, a gas has started to fill the room that makes them sick. And then the next room is like totally different from any of the previous rooms. It looks like something the Penguin from Batman Returns would design, with these weird squiggly shapes all over the walls, and some of the walls and floor move, and there's a TV on, and it's all weird. And when they go to this, it kind of looks like a hatch, they realize that there was something on it, and they start to trip their balls off. They have to figure out a way to get the antidote for whatever it is, and they end up fighting to the death. Jason dies. Ben uses the antidote, and he makes it into the next room, which is this, it looks like a rich man's parlor where he would smoke cigars. He falls out of the ceiling and into the room. And that is where the movie began. He's like running around this room that's filled with objects, like picking up random things, looking at random things. He thinks that he solved the clue, and he manages to make it out into the next room, where he is congratulated on being the winner by a random man who like offers him a drink and a place to sit, and is sort of explaining to him what he's won. So at this point, the jig is up that the whole thing was an elaborate and deadly scam by a faceless group of people that wanted to see how soul survivors would survive a situation like this. And Ben won. The dark horse won. Who's surprised? Then the scene moves to Zoe, who is lying face down in the medical room, and two people wearing hazmat suits come in, and they're looking around the room, and they notice that the oxygen masks have been deployed in the room, and they're like, I wonder why that is. And then she's like, to breathe, and then she like knocks him out, goes out of the door that they came in. Next thing you know, Zoe is rescuing Ben. They manage to kill the random guy. They make it out of the building. They call the police. The police go to the building. They don't find anything. Zoe has turned into that guy from the 12 Monkeys that is seeing signs and symbols everywhere in like graffiti on the wall. And the police don't believe her. They believe that her and Ben went through something really traumatic. Ben is hurt. She's hurt. They're filthy. She's saying they came out of there, but they can't find any evidence of that. Time has passed. Her and Ben are, looks like, having lunch or something outside. She's telling him that she's continued to do research on the organization and what she's found. Now, Ben has cleaned himself up, gotten himself together, and got a very, very, very big promotion at work. Like vice president of regional sales. He was working in the kitchen at the beginning of the movie. What? Anyway, Apparently nothing has changed about Zoe's life. We assume that she continued to go to school. And she believes that she has found the organization, like the headquarters, I'm assuming that she's assuming, of the organization, and wants to go there with him, and she wants to fly there. Now, at the beginning, she made it very clear that she don't fly because she was in a plane crash, so she don't do that. Next thing you know, we're on a plane and the plane is shaking and people are terrified and people are reading off clues like this means that, and the stewardess is like running up the aisle because they're trying to get into the cockpit. So they solve all the clues, they get in, but it's too late and it looks like the plane is about to crash, but it doesn't crash because it was a simulation and they're all hired actors. And that scene ends with a faceless human-shaped shadow is telling someone, I'm so glad that Zoe's gotten over her fear of flying. First of all, y'all foreshadow way too many things. Ben, Zoe, and Jason making it to the final 3 was very obvious. The flashbacks, each of them have moments where they're remembering the traumatic event specifically, was very good. Because it'd be small things like a snow globe. For Zoe, it's just being alone apparently will trigger a memory. For Ben, it was the people around him who remember the incident. Now, what got me was the responsible parties for each of these incidents. Some of them could have been totally avoided and some of them were not. And I feel like the levels on which that's operating is something that could have been addressed, because Mike, that was an accident. Amanda serving her country, Danny's whole family dying because of the carbon monoxide detector not going off was sad, but also somebody was responsible for that. The plane crash, probably an accident. And Jason, that just was so random. How are the two of you out at sea alone? How does that happen? Different levels. But they're all likable, except for Jason. Well, kind of, sort of, until he starts, losing his mind. They're all pretty likable people, like Amanda, Mike, Danny, Zoe, all pretty likable characters. And it was too much. There wasn't enough like authentic friction for me. Because everybody is there for the money. They all need it for different reasons, but it's not a life or death kind of reason for each of them. Like Zoe is a student and her family is gone. Yeah, she could use that money. Amanda, I assume, isn't with the military anymore and could use that money, Everybody could use that money, but it's not like a do or die kind of thing. Why did y'all stop with the mental, traumatic pokes at people halfway through the movie? Because putting them in an oven got Amanda. Putting them in the log cabin was slightly related. I guess it was the only way to bring up that detail from Christmas Eve, I think it was, where when Ben was driving, it was the only way to naturally bring it up, I guess. And then including Jason's with the red coat and everything. I was like, okay, so y'all did 2 in 1. And then the bar, which I guess could have been related to Ben's as well. So, and then you guys went totally off the rails by creating this trip room, which, considering the crazy level of detail that they put in all these other rooms, why did y'all make that room like that? How is that related to anybody else's previous experience? It just seemed to come out of nowhere, and it just seemed to be a way to get Ben and Jason in conflict, because otherwise I don't see that happening. I see Ben getting mollywopped and Jason not being smart enough to solve the puzzles, and it just not going down that well, because other than Zoe, I think Danny probably could have gotten pretty far, but none of them really could have solved the puzzles individually. And I know that was the point. You can also tell because of that who wouldn't make it very far without other characters around. It's like the Harry Potter movies. If Hermione wasn't a part of their group, Harry and Ron would not have made it. That's just how y'all set up her character. She did all the work. You could tell they were just trying to wrap up the story. The fact that instead of just Ben walking out and into a room with like the money piled up and like a glass of bourbon and saying like, happy trails, you know Ben would have taken that money and ran. And that would have been the end of it. But this whole like evil mastermind trying to explain the reasoning behind the shadow group orchestrating this whole thing. You didn't have to do this to see these results. This was like pseudoscience, you know what I mean? When you're stacking the deck to work in your favor or to work towards a specific result, you've already taken the science out of it. So the logic of it, boop, just went right out the window. But I like that Zoe survived, you know. She's a smarty, she's a smart, and kind of, you had the feeling that she was gonna figure it out. Even though she's very shy, that doesn't mean that she gonna die because she's shy. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining. I would give it a 3 out of 5 because although I have some complaints about, you know, the storyline and the character development, it was pretty entertaining. They did keep it moving. It was like a choose your own adventure kind of movie where each room was so different and seeing them interact with things was kind of interesting. You know, you kind of put yourself in their shoes, like what would you do in that kind of place? And there were a lot of opportunities to do that. So the engagement with the audience was there. And I'm just gonna say this for the record, no, this is not like Cube. I would believe more of a Cube scenario than an escape room scenario because the escape room is trying to elicit, like, affect their emotional and psychological responses to things that are based on traumatic events from their past. And Cube was like, we're gonna drop a bunch of people into this cube with murder rooms in it and figure out if they can figure out how to survive each other in these rooms. It's a very different scenario. Would I recommend Cube over escape room? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. It doesn't have the special effects, you know, the production design. It's a cube. But the journey of the characters is very different and much more involved to me. But you guys let me know what you think. Thank you for spending your time here with me today. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all next time.